When the most dangerous man in Seoul can't silence his own child's screams, and a stranger with nothing to lose crosses his path at 3 a.m. in a hospital corridor, some rules are about to shatter. Hey, beautiful souls! Welcome back to the channel. I hope this story finds you well, wherever you are in the world right now. Drop a comment and let me know what city or country you're watching from. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button because trust me, you do not want to miss how this unfolds. The infant's wails carved through the sterile silence of Seoul's Gangnam Medical Center like a blade through silk. Relentless, primal, unstoppable. Jimin Corleone stood in the private wing's corridor, his blood-stained Brioni suit jacket draped over one arm, his other hand pressed against the bulletproof glass separating him from the NICU. Inside, nurses hovered uselessly around the incubator containing his 3-week-old daughter. Their fear was palpable even through the barrier. They'd tried everything, sung lullabies, adjusted temperature, changed formula. Nothing worked. The baby screamed like she was being torn apart. Boss, his second-in-command, Tae-jin, approached with the cautious gait of a man who'd seen what happened to bearers of bad news. The doctor says, "I don't pay him to tell me what he can't do." Jimin's voice was glacier smooth, but his knuckles whitened against the glass. "My daughter has been crying for 6 hours straight. 6 hours." The shooting tonight was supposed to be simple. Eliminate the Yakuza informant, send the message, come home. But then his phone had exploded with calls from the hospital. His daughter, inconsolable, deteriorating. Her mother, his wife Min Seo, had died birthing her 3 weeks ago. Hemorrhage, gone before he could say goodbye. And now this tiny creature was all he had left of her, and she was slipping away with every scream. "There's a woman." Tae-jin's words came fast, nervous. "In the ER. She heard the baby from 3 floors down." Jimin turned slowly. "What woman?" "African. Nigerian, we think. She was brought in." Tae-jin checked his phone. "Assault victim, but she keeps asking about the crying baby. Says she can help." "A random assault victim wants access to my daughter?" The absurdity would have been laughable if Jimin wasn't watching his child convulse with sobs through the glass. "She's insistent, sir. The ER staff can't calm her down. She's trying to leave her own treatment to get up here." Something cold slithered down Jimin's spine. Not fear. He'd murdered that emotion years ago. But instinct. The same instinct that had kept him alive through gang wars, political assassinations, and hostile takeovers. The instinct that whispered, "Pay attention. Bring her to me." Amara Belova's head throbbed where her ex-boyfriend's fist had connected with her temple, but the pain was background noise. That baby's cry. God, that sound. It bypassed her ears and went straight to her soul. She knew that cry, not the regular distress of hunger or discomfort. That was the cry of a child who'd forgotten how to be held. "Ma'am, you need to lie back down." The ER nurse reached for her arm, but Amara was already pulling out her IV. "That baby needs help." "Now." "You have a concussion. I'm a neonatal specialist from Lagos." The lie came smooth. She wasn't a specialist. She was a PhD candidate in child psychology who'd spent 2 years in Nigerian orphanages studying infant trauma. But these people didn't need her credentials. That baby needed what she knew. "That cry means the baby is shutting down. You have maybe an hour before permanent psychological damage sets in." The nurse paled. Footsteps, heavy, military precise. Amara turned to see 2 men in dark suits entering the ER, parting the crowd like sharks through a school of fish. The one in front had eyes like polished obsidian, beautiful and merciless. "You're the woman asking about my daughter." Not a question. A statement delivered in Korean-accented English, each word a perfectly controlled weapon. Amara's breath caught. This man radiated danger the way the sun radiated heat. Constant, undeniable, lethal. Blood speckled his white shirt collar. His presence made every person in the ER unconsciously step back. "Your daughter is dissociating," Amara said, forcing her voice steady. "She's crying herself into neurological shutdown." His jaw tightened. "The doctors have tried everything." "The doctors don't know what I know." She stood, swaying slightly, ignoring the nurse's protest. "Let me see her." "5 minutes. If I can't help, you throw me out." He studied her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but Amara held his gaze. She'd stared down worse than gangsters. She'd stared down her own father as he disowned her for refusing an arranged marriage. She'd stared down poverty, racism in Moscow, where she'd done her undergraduate work, and tonight, her ex-boyfriend's fists. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amara Belova. Russian surname, Nigerian accent. In Seoul." His head tilted fractionally. "Running from something?" "Aren't we all?" She gestured toward the elevator. "Your daughter doesn't have time for my life story." For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then Jimin Corleone smiled, a terrible, beautiful thing that didn't reach his eyes. "If you're lying, if you hurt her, if you're here for any reason other than helping my child—" He leaned close enough that she could smell gunpowder and expensive cologne. "I will show you why they call me the Reaper of Gangnam." Amara's pulse hammered, but she nodded. As they entered the elevator, the baby's screams echoing down the shaft like a prophecy, Amara wondered what she'd just walked into, and why. Despite the danger radiating off this man like heat from a furnace, she felt compelled to step closer rather than run. The elevator doors closed. The crying grew louder, and neither of them knew that in 5 minutes, everything would change. The NICU smelled like antiseptic and desperation. Jimin watched through the observation window as Amara scrubbed her hands with methodical precision, her movements practiced despite the concussion that had her gripping the sink edge for balance. She'd refused painkillers, said she needed to be fully present. "Her name?" Amara called through the intercom. "Hana." The name tasted like grief in his mouth. Minzio had chosen it. One, unique, the only one, and now she was. "Tell me about Minzio," Amara said, pulling on surgical gloves. "How did she hold Hana?" The question was a knife between his ribs. "She never got to. She died during delivery." Amara's hands stilled. When she looked at him through the glass, something shifted in her dark eyes. Not pity, but recognition, like she understood what it meant to lose everything. "So, Hana has never been held by someone who loves her," Amara said softly. "Only by nurses doing their job. That's why she's crying." "That's not possible. They feed her, change her." "Love isn't a checklist, Mr. Corleone." She moved toward the incubator where Hana's tiny body arched with sobs. "Babies don't just need food and warmth. They need to feel chosen, wanted, safe." Her voice cracked slightly. "They need to know someone would burn the world down for them." Jimin's breath stopped, because that's exactly what he'd do, had done, would do again. "You said you worked in Lagos orphanages," Tae-jin said from behind him, tablet in hand. "We can't find any record." "Because I volunteered while finishing my psychology doctorate in Moscow." Amara didn't look away from Hana. "My father disowned me 3 years ago for refusing to marry a man who beat his first wife into silence. I had nothing. No money, no family. I worked in those orphanages because I understood what it meant to be abandoned. She gently opened the incubator. And I learned something that every textbook misses. What? Jimin asked, his voice rougher than intended. That babies don't cry because something's wrong with them. Amara's hands hovered over Hana's trembling form. They cry because something's wrong with their world. She did something then that made every nurse gasp. Something the doctors had forbidden. Something Jimin himself had been too terrified to do since the night Hana was born, and he'd held her for 30 seconds before nurses whisked her away to machines and monitoring. Amara lifted Hana out of the incubator and pressed her directly against her chest, skin to skin, despite every protocol screaming against it. "What are you—" The head nurse started forward. Jimin raised one hand. Everyone froze, because Hana's crying had stuttered, caught, shifted into something that sounded almost like surprise. Amara began to hum, not a lullaby, something older, deeper, a Nigerian melody that seemed to pulse with heartbeat rhythm. And Hana, for the first time in 6 hours, fell silent. If you're feeling this story already, drop a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts. The silence was more shocking than the screaming had been. Jimin's hand flattened against the glass as he watched Amara sway gently, his daughter's tiny body molded against her chest. Hana's eyes, Minseo's eyes, blinked slowly, like she was seeing the world for the first time. "Impossible," the head nurse whispered. But Jimin wasn't looking at the nurse. He was looking at Amara's face, the way her eyes had closed, the way tears tracked down her bruised cheek, the way she held Hana like she was the most precious thing in existence, like she understood what it meant to be both saved and shattered. "Boss?" Tae-jin's voice held a warning. "Your phone." Jimin glanced down. 12 missed calls, all from the same number. The Southside Dragons, the Chinese gang that controlled the drug routes he'd just burned to send his message tonight. "They know about Hana," Tae-jin said quietly. "The hit tonight wasn't just about territory. It was about you having a weakness now." Jimin's blood turned to ice. In his world, family was a target. Love was a liability. That's why he'd kept Minseo hidden, protected, secret. But secrets died with their keepers, and now— The door to the NICU opened. Amara emerged, still holding Hana, who'd fallen into the deep sleep of the finally comforted. "She needs this," Amara said, her voice fierce despite her exhaustion. "Not for 5 minutes, for weeks, maybe months. Someone has to hold her, sing to her, make her feel safe, or she'll—" Her voice cracked. "She'll shut down completely." "We'll hire specialists," Jimin started. "She doesn't need specialists." Amara's eyes met his, and something electric passed between them. "She needs someone who'll die before letting her feel alone again." The words hung in the air like a thrown blade. "You," Jimin said, realization hitting him with the force of a bullet. "You're asking to stay. I'm telling you she'll die without it." Amara's arms tightened protectively around Hana. "Not physically, but everything that makes her human. Her ability to trust, to love, to feel safe. That dies if she spends the next 6 months with rotating nurses treating her like a medical problem." Jimin stepped closer. Close enough to see the defiance burning in Amara's eyes despite the fear underneath. Close enough to smell the hospital antiseptic and something else, jasmine and courage. "You walk into my life at 3 a.m., bleeding and broken, and now you want me to trust you with the only thing I have left to lose?" "Yes." No hesitation. No apology. "Why?" The question came out rawer than he intended. "Why would you do this?" Amara looked down at Hana, and when she looked back up, Her eyes were ancient with understanding. "Because 3 years ago, when my father threw me out with nothing, a stranger gave me a place to sleep. She saved my life." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Maybe saving Hana's is how I pay that forward." Jimin's phone buzzed again. Threat after threat flooding in. He made a decision that would either save them all or destroy everything. "You start now, but Amara?" He leaned close enough that his breath stirred her hair. "If this is a game, if you're working for my enemies, I won't kill you quick." Her smile was sad and knowing. "Mr. Corleone, I stopped playing games the night I chose freedom over safety." Outside, a black van pulled up to the hospital entrance, and the real danger began. Jimin's penthouse fortress overlooked Seoul like a king surveying his blood-soaked kingdom. Amara stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, Hana asleep against her shoulder, and tried not to think about the armed guards at every entrance, or the fact that she'd left the hospital 3 hours ago in a bulletproof SUV, or that the man who'd brought her here had killed someone tonight. "Your room is ready." Jimin's voice came from behind her, smooth and dangerous. "Next to Hana's nursery. You'll have everything you need." "Except freedom to leave," Amara said without turning. "You're free to go any time." A pause. "But Hana stays." Amara turned then, careful not to jostle the sleeping infant. Jimin had changed. Designer black shirt, no blood, but somehow more lethal in the polished comfort of his domain. "You'd really let me walk out? After everything I've seen?" His smile was a blade wrapped in silk. "You've seen a hospital room and my car. You know my name, but so does half of Seoul." He moved closer, each step deliberate. "What you don't know is whether I'm the monster they say I am, or something else entirely. And what are you?" She hated how her pulse quickened as he invaded her space. "Whatever I need to be to protect her." His eyes dropped to Hana. "My wife made me promise, in those last 30 seconds before she died, that I'd give our daughter something I never had." "What?" "A childhood without fear." His jaw tightened. "Turns out that's harder than eliminating rival gangs." Despite everything, Amara's heart cracked open. "She told you that while dying?" "She knew what I was, what I'd done." His voice went hollow. "She married me anyway." "Said she saw something in me worth saving." He looked at Amara then, really looked, and she felt stripped bare. Maybe she was wrong. Or maybe— Amara shifted Hana gently. "Maybe she saw who you could become." The moment stretched between them, electric and impossible. Then Tae-jin burst through the door, tablet blazing. "Boss, we have a problem. Amara Belova. She's not who she says she is." Amara's blood froze. "Her ex-boyfriend, the one who put her in the hospital?" Tae-jin pulled up security footage. "Dmitry Volkov, enforcer for the Bratva, the Russian mob has been trying to infiltrate your operation for months." Jimin's expression went arctic. "Explain now." "I didn't know." Amara's voice cracked. "Dmitry told me he was in import-export. I found out 2 weeks ago what he really did, tried to leave. And he—" She touched her bruised temple. "I swear I had no idea he worked for the same organization that's allied with the Southside Dragons." Jimin's voice could have frozen hell itself. "The same dragons who want Hana dead to destroy me." "No." Amara's arms tightened around Hana protectively. "I would never—" "Wouldn't you?" He stepped so close she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "A perfect stranger appears exactly when I'm vulnerable, gains access to my daughter, my home, my—" He stopped, but the unfinished word hung between them. "Trust." "Dimitri's downstairs," Tae-jin said quietly, "demanding we return his property." Amara's world tilted. He found me. No. Jimin's smile was purely predatory. I'm going to find him. He pulled a gun from his desk drawer, and Amara realized she'd walked into a war she never saw coming. The nursery became a cage lined with silk and safety locks. You don't leave this floor. Jimin's order was absolute as he checked his gun's magazine. Tae-jin stays with you. If I'm not back in an hour, you think I set this up? Amara's voice shook as she placed Hana in the crib, the baby's peaceful sleep, a cruel contrast to the chaos erupting. You think I used your daughter? I think you conveniently appeared when I was desperate. He holstered the weapon. I think your ex-boyfriend is downstairs with 5 armed men, and I think coincidences don't exist in my world. Then kill me. She turned to face him fully, tears streaming down her bruised face. But let me finish putting Hana to sleep first, because whatever you believe about me, that baby deserves one person who won't abandon her. Something flickered in Jimin's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. Boss, Tae-jin's voice crackled through the earpiece. Dimitri's saying, you need to hear this. Jimin pressed the intercom. Speak. Dimitri's Russian accent oozed through the speaker like poisoned honey. Jimin Corleone, I'm here for what's mine. The girl, she stole something from me before she ran. I stole nothing, Amara shouted. Not money, Malaya. Dimitri's laugh was acid. Information. See, my Amara, she's smart. Too smart. She found the files I kept hidden, files about your wife's death. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. What files? Jimin's voice was death itself. The ones proving Minseo's hemorrhage wasn't an accident. Silence, heavy as a guillotine. The Bratva paid her doctor to ensure complications during delivery. The Southside Dragons wanted you vulnerable, mourning, weak. They wanted your empire to crumble while you grieved. Amara's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, God! Jimin stood frozen, a statue carved from rage and anguish. Amara found the evidence 2 weeks ago, Dimitri continued. Tried to run to the police, so I reminded her what happens to women who betray me. But she escaped to that hospital, your hospital, thinking she'd be safe. His laugh was cruel. She didn't know fate would put her right where we needed her, inside your fortress, close to your heart. You're lying. But Amara's voice wavered. Check your phone, Malaya. The files I sent you before I broke your ribs, the ones you were too afraid to open. With shaking hands, Amara pulled out her cracked phone, opened her encrypted messages, and there, dozens of documents, medical records, bank transfers, communications between the Bratva and a doctor named Park Ji-woo, Minseo's doctor. I couldn't. Amara looked at Jimin, whose face had gone white. I didn't know who to trust. I didn't know if you were involved in your own wife's. Get out. Jimin's voice was barely human. Jimin, please, get out. The roar shook the windows. You knew my wife was murdered and you said nothing. I was trying to protect Hana. If you were complicit, if I told you she'd... Boss! Tae-jin's shout came too late. The window exploded inward. Gunfire erupted, and Amara threw herself over Hana's crib as the world descended into chaos. Through the smoke and screaming, Dimitri's voice echoed, Nobody leaves alive. Blood spread across the nursery floor like spilled wine. Amara crouched over Hana's crib, her body a human shield as bullets tore through designer furniture and shattered glass rained down like deadly snow. The baby's screams joined the gunfire, a symphony of terror. Move, and I kill the child first. Dmitri stood in the shattered window frame, repelling gear still attached, gun aimed directly at the crib. Jimin was across the room, his weapon trained on Dmitri, but the angle was impossible. Any shot risked hitting Amara or Hana. "You murdered my wife!" Jimin's voice was a graveyard at midnight. "You made my daughter an orphan. The Bratva murdered your wife." Dmitri smiled, cold and empty. "I just beat the woman stupid enough to try exposing us. But then she had to play hero, didn't you? Amara?" He took a step closer. "Running to this hospital, seeing the baby, thinking you could save her like you couldn't save yourself." "Don't!" Amara's voice cracked as Hana wailed beneath her. "Please, she's innocent." "So was my brother when Jimin killed him in Busan." Dimitri's finger tightened on the trigger. "Innocent doesn't mean protected. Not in our world. Your brother was selling children." Jimin's aim never wavered. "I don't regret what I did, and I won't regret this." The shot cracked through the air. Amara screamed, but the bullet hit Tae-jin, who'd thrown himself in front of the crib. He went down hard, blood blooming across his chest. "No!" Jimin's distraction cost him. Two more men crashed through the window, tackling him to the ground. His gun skittered away. Dmitri grabbed Amara by her hair, yanking her away from the crib. "You cost me everything. My cover, my operation, my standing with the Bratva." He shoved his gun against her temple. "Watching you die isn't enough. I want you to watch the baby die first." "Wait!" Amara's hands clawed at his grip. "The files! I have more files! Evidence against the dragons, the Bratva, everyone! Kill me and you lose everything!" "She's lying," one of Dimitri's men said. "Am I?" Amara's mind raced, desperate. "Why do you think I survived 2 weeks on the run? I made copies, backups, insurance, hidden where only I can retrieve them." She looked at Jimin, pinned beneath 2 thugs, his face a mask of rage and helplessness. "Kill me, kill Hana, and every police agency in 3 countries gets the evidence, including proof of who really ordered Minseo's death." Dimitri's grip loosened fractionally. "Where?" "Let them go, all of them. Then I'll tell you. You expect me to believe I'm a woman who walked away from everything rather than be owned." Amara's voice steadied, even with a gun to her head. "I always have a backup plan." Dmitri studied her, then laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Fine, we take you. Leave them bleeding out. Either way, I win." He dragged her toward the window. "Amara!" Jimin's roar was animalistic as he fought against his captors. She looked back once, tears streaming. "Save Hana, that's all that matters." Then Dmitri shoved her through the shattered window onto the rappelling line. And Amara disappeared into the Seoul night, knowing she'd just sacrificed herself to buy Jimin minutes at most. In the nursery, Hana's cries reached a fever pitch, and Jimin, for the first time in 15 years, felt genuine fear. Jimin moved like death incarnate. The first thug died before he could blink, neck snapped with surgical precision. The second got Jimin's elbow through his throat. 3 seconds, 2 bodies, and Jimin was already grabbing his gun, racing to the window where Amara had vanished. "Boss, wait!" Tae-jin gasped from the floor, clutching his bleeding shoulder. Not his chest. The vest had saved him. "Track her phone, now!" Jimin's hands were steady as he checked his ammunition, but his heart was a war drum. "And get medical up here for Hana." "Already done." Tae-jin struggled to his feet, typing one-handed on his tablet. "But boss, what she said about the files, you think she was bluffing?" Jimin paused at the window, staring at the repelling line swaying in the night wind. Below, a van screeched away into traffic. "No." The word came out quiet, certain. She meant every word. How do you know? Because in those final seconds, when Amara looked back at him with a gun to her head, he'd seen the same expression Minseo wore when she'd made him promise to protect Hana. Not fear for herself, terror for someone she loved. She bought us time. Jimin turned from the window, something crystallizing in his chest, hot and sharp and undeniable. She knew Dmitri would take her alive if she claimed to have leverage. She sacrificed herself to save Hana. And you. The words hung in the air like a confession. Behind them, Hana's cries had softened as the medical team worked to calm her. But Jimin could hear the difference, the return of that desperate, abandoned wail that Amara had silenced hours ago. His daughter was losing the only person who'd made her feel safe, and Jimin was losing. Got her. Tae-jin pulled up a GPS tracker. Her phone's moving south toward the port district, Old Bratva territory. He looked up, eyes hard. It's a trap, boss. They want you to come. They'll have 50 men waiting. Good. Jimin checked his spare clips, his backup piece, the knife in his boot. Call everyone. I want the entire family mobilized in 10 minutes. The dragons might use this as an opportunity to hit our other locations. Let them try. Jimin's voice could have cut diamond. Amara Belova walked into my life bleeding and broken, and instead of running when she had the chance, she stayed. She held my daughter when trained nurses couldn't. She took a bullet meant for Hana. He looked at Tae-jin with something blazing in his eyes that his second had never seen before. Minseo asked me to give Hana a childhood without fear. But I can't do that if I teach her that sacrifice means nothing, that the people who save us are disposable. Boss, she matters, Tae-jin. The admission felt like tearing open his own chest. She matters to Hana, and she matters to... He stopped, but the truth was already loose. To him. Then let's go get her. Tae-jin smiled through his pain. The Reaper of Gangnam hasn't had a proper war in months anyway. Jimin turned to Hana one last time. The baby's eyes found his, Minseo's eyes, accusing and desperate. Bring her back, those eyes seemed to say. Bring her home. I will, he whispered. I promise. Then he walked out to start a war. For the woman who'd taught him that some things were worth burning the world down to protect. The warehouse reeked of salt water and diesel fuel and impending violence. Amara's wrists burned from the zip ties cutting into her skin, her arms wrenched behind the metal chair. Dmitri circled her like a predator savoring the kill. 5 Bratva soldiers positioned at every exit. No files, he said, almost conversationally. You lied beautifully. Almost believed you myself. I told you what you needed to hear. Amara's split lip throbbed, but her voice stayed steady. To save a baby you were going to murder. Noble. Dmitri crouched in front of her. Stupid but noble. Now Jimin Corleone is coming. We've tracked his motorcade. He'll walk into an ambush because of you. The South Side Dragons have snipers on every rooftop. 50 men total. When he dies trying to save you, his empire crumbles. And that baby? His smile was poison. Becomes a very profitable bargaining chip. You'll never touch her. Amara's certainty made him pause. Why? Because you believe in him? Dmitri laughed. He's a killer, Amara, a monster who... The lights died. Every bulb, every exit sign, every sliver of illumination, gone. What the... Dmitri's shout cut off as gunfire erupted from impossible angles. Not from the doors, from above, from the skylights nobody had bothered securing because they were 40 feet up. Jimin's men descended on rappelling lines like avenging angels. Chaos exploded. Muzzle flashes illuminated snapshots of carnage, Tae-jin taking out 3 soldiers with brutal efficiency, despite his wounded shoulder. Other men in black tactical gear, moving like choreographed death through the darkness. And then Jimin was there. He materialized from the shadows behind Dmitri, and before the Russian could turn, Jimin had a knife to his throat. "You made 3 mistakes tonight," Jimin said, his voice glacier calm over the dying gunfire. "First, you touched my daughter. Second, you murdered my wife." The blade pressed deeper. "Third, you hurt the woman she's crying for. Kill me and the dragons still come. The dragons are already dead." Tae-jin limped over, tablet showing security footage. "We hit their leadership simultaneously. No snipers, no backup, just you and your delusions." Dimitri's face drained white. Jimin looked past him to where Amara sat, bruised and bleeding but somehow still defiant. Their eyes met across the warehouse. And something wordless passed between them, recognition, gratitude, something deeper that neither could name. "She was right about the files," Jimin continued. "While you were dragging her here, my people were executing Park Ji-woo, the doctor who killed Min-seo. He confirmed everything before he died. The Bratva ordered it. You facilitated it." His voice dropped to a whisper. "You destroyed my family. Please." "Did Min-seo beg?" Jimin's hand didn't shake. "Did my wife plead for her life while your doctor let her bleed out?" "Jimin!" Amara's voice cut through his rage. "Don't! Not like this. Not for me." He looked at her again, really looked, and saw what she was offering. A choice. Between the monster he'd always been and the man Min-seo believed he could become. The man Amara somehow saw despite everything. "You're right." Jimin lowered the knife, and Dmitri sagged with relief, just before Jimin's fist connected with his temple, dropping him unconscious. "Tae-jin, call the Interpol contact. Anonymous tip about a Bratva enforcer with evidence of international trafficking. Let the law have him." "Boss? My daughter doesn't need a father with more blood on his hands." Jimin crossed to Amara, gently cutting her bonds. "She needs one who knows when mercy is stronger than murder." Amara's hands were free, but she didn't pull away. "You came. You sacrificed yourself for Hana." His fingers brushed her bruised cheek with unexpected tenderness. "What did you expect me to do? Run, like everyone else in my life? Then they were all fools." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Outside, sirens wailed. Police? Alerted by Jimin's anonymous call, closing in. "We need to move," Tae-jin urged. But Jimin and Amara remained frozen, connected by something neither could name, but both felt blazing between them like a star being born. "Hana needs you," Jimin said finally. "And I—" He stopped, but Amara heard what he couldn't say. "I need you too." 6 months later, dawn painted Seoul in shades of gold and promise. Amara stood in the penthouse nursery, no longer a fortress, but a home, watching Hana take her first wobbling steps. 8 months old and already defying every milestone chart, the baby girl lurched from the playmat toward Amara with determined giggles. "That's it, my love. Come to me." Amara crouched, arms open, heart full enough to burst. Hana collapsed into her embrace, and Amara breathed in that perfect baby scent, innocence and possibility and unconditional trust. She walked. Jimin's voice came from the doorway, rough with emotion. He'd been in morning meetings, his empire now legitimized, washed clean through strategic partnerships and legal reconstruction. The Reaper of Gangnam was becoming something else entirely, something better. 3 steps. Amara looked up at him, still marveling at how this dangerous man softened every time he saw his daughter. "Your wife would be proud. Both of them would." The words came easier now. Jimin crossed the room, kneeling beside them. Hana immediately reached for him. "Appa!" her first word, spoken 2 weeks ago. But then she did something new. Grabbed both their hands, trying to hold them together. "Smart girl," Jimin murmured, his eyes meeting Amara's. "Knows what she wants." "And what's that?" Amara's pulse quickened at his proximity, at the way 6 months of shared midnight feedings and whispered conversations had woven them into something inevitable. "A family." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "Amara, I know we said we'd keep this professional, that you were here for Hana, not for falling in love with her father?" The confession escaped before she could stop it. Jimin's breath caught. "Are you? In love with me?" "Terrifyingly." Amara laughed, tears pricking her eyes. "With a reformed Mafia boss who still checks his gun before breakfast and has 17 security protocols for grocery shopping. 18 now, added 1 for the farmer's market." His smile was crooked, vulnerable, real. "Amara Belova, I spent 15 years believing I was incapable of feeling anything but rage and control. Then you appeared in a hospital corridor at 3 a.m. and cracked me open like you had the blueprint to my soul. Jimin, let me finish." He shifted Hana to his other arm, then reached into his pocket. Min Seo's last words weren't just about giving Hana a childhood without fear. She said, "Promise me you'll let someone love you again. Promise me you won't die alone just because I did." He pulled out a small velvet box. Amara's heart stopped. "I'm not asking you to marry a criminal. That man died the night you threw yourself over my daughter's crib." Jimin opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band embedded with a single diamond. "I'm asking you to marry the man you helped me become. The father. The human being who remembers how to feel. Yes." The word exploded from her. No hesitation, no doubt. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Hana clapped her tiny hands like she understood, squealing with delight as Jimin slid the ring onto Amara's finger and kissed her with 6 months of restrained longing finally unleashed. When they broke apart, both breathless, Amara pressed her forehead to his. "Your wife was right, you know, about you being worth saving." "So were you," Jimin whispered. "The night you chose to save Hana instead of running. You saved us both." Outside, Seoul awakened to another day. But inside the penthouse that had once been a cage, 3 hearts beat in synchrony. Orphan baby, reformed killer, and the woman brave enough to see past the blood to the soul underneath. Hana nestled between them, finally, completely, utterly safe. And in that moment, surrounded by the family they'd forged from tragedy and choice and impossible love, Amara understood what her mother used to say. Sometimes the most broken people create the most beautiful futures. "Story time?" Jimin asked, settling onto the floor with Hana. "Always." Amara curled beside them, her hand in his, their daughter between them. And as morning light spilled through bulletproof windows, they read stories about princesses and dragons and happy endings, the kind they'd stopped believing in until they'd found each other, the kind they'd fight to protect forever.